Welcome to Builders, Budgets, and Beers. I'm Reese Barnes, and I started this podcast to have real conversations about money in the building industry, the wins, the mistakes, and everything in between. I believe builders deserve to feel confident about their finances, and that starts by hearing from others who've been through it too. This industry can be slow to change, but the right stories and the right tools can make profitability feel possible. Let's get into it. All right, Brady. Mics are hot.
All right, let's go.
We're rocking and rolling. Appreciate you coming on, dude. If you listen to the podcast, you know that I always like to give the listeners just a little intro to the guest that's on. So if you would, go ahead and tell them who Brady Fenn is and what Fenn Rogers is all about.
Yeah, so Brady Fenn, a partner with here at Fenn Rogers Custom Homes. My partner is Jeff Rogers. He has been in the business for probably 40, 45 years. Mm-hmm. And I've been with him for coming up on 11 years now. Started working with him back in 2014. And I was just laborer, basically. At that time, it was just him. He was thinking he wanted to bring somebody else on, and I was looking for work. I had met him through church, and asked him if he needed help, and sure enough. And so my first job with him was tearing up wood floor on a remodel that we were doing. Just grunt labor. Yeah, kind of just got me in at the bottom floor and literally tearing up floors, and just kind of worked my way up till we got to the point where I could start managing projects. And then eventually he and I became partners a couple years ago, changed the name to Fenn Rogers Custom Homes. And eventually he'll retire, but definitely not trying to push him out by any means. Want him to stay on as long as he can. So, yeah.
Totally.
But we're custom home builders here in the Phoenix area, Arizona. Mm-hmm. Small company. We do about 6 to 10 projects a year. Mm-hmm. Love it. It's great stuff.
Dude, that's great. That's great. Okay, so we're talking, did you start in construction in 2014?
Kind of. So I grew up in construction. My dad's a home builder in a small town in southern Arizona. So kind of grew up with him. Summers, again, just kind of grunt labor. We did our own concrete and framing. So it was a lot of that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then in 2013, I was starting to go to school for construction management. I did an internship with a big commercial contractor on a big project in Tempe, actually at ASU at Arizona State University.
Cool.
And kind of hated it.
Yeah.
Just the speed, the intensity, it just was cutthroat. I mean, I just was like, man, this is just not, I really like personal relationships. I like collaboration, and this just all seemed like it was numbers and stress and just intense, and didn't love it. So had a little bit of experience there. But yeah, to answer your question, I've been around construction my whole life.
Got it. And the reason I asked is because, excuse me. The reason I asked is because, dude, 2014 to 2025 as a laborer to partner in a very respected home building outfit in one of the hottest markets in the United States is pretty insane. I guess, how did you get the nod with Jeff to get this opportunity, and then for him to be like, yeah, I want to partner with you, Brady, let's do this?
Yeah. I think when I started, he was about 60. So he actually, he's 70 now. So at the time, I think he saw the writing on the wall, okay, eventually I want someone to succeed me, maybe buy me out, take this over. This type of business is hard to just sell outright, Mm-hmm. And so I think he saw that a little bit as his succession plan. We had a little bit of a relationship, like I said, through church. And so there was kind of some mutual interest there. And I saw that too. I didn't necessarily, at the time, I didn't realize what it could be or what it could look like. But, I saw it as an opportunity. At the time, it was like, yeah, maybe I could be a project manager, superintendent for him or something. And, so I think a couple years in, we realized, okay, this could work out. Now, that being said, there were times where things, I was maybe a little impatient. Things weren't moving as fast as I'd like to with
Mhm.
ownership or things like that. So there actually was a period of time where I actually went and worked for another company for a couple of months and realized the grass wasn't greener on the other side. Luckily, called Jeff up and he took me back, and it was a good experience, I think, for both of us. Just to kind of realize that, hey, this is something good we have here. We work together well.
Yeah.
So then at that point, I was kind of like committed. Okay, I'm gonna kind of stay this out. Um, eventually take over, and we got to the point where once we became 50-50 partners, I think it was really good security for me. Like, okay, I'm in. This is what I want to do. I'm staying here. Um, and then yeah, now we're to the point where he's talking about retirement, and I have another partner that's since joined us that's going to essentially buy him out, and he and I are going to move forward. And Jeff will keep working a little bit as long as he can, but he's looking to take a step back here, early 2026.
Dude, that's great. That's great. I mean, it's just like generally it sounds like it was built on like trust, and the opportunity
Yeah,
came from like just consistent delivery. Honestly, that's what
yeah,
I'm picking up on.
yeah, 100%. I mean, Jeff has been a huge mentor for me. He's been patient with me. He's given me all the responsibility and freedom that I can handle to really kind of let me grow. He's very yeah, it's just kind of the type of person he is as a business owner. Very trusting, very much like, hey, you do your job. I'm not going to micromanage you. Yeah, honestly, it's been awesome. Couldn't ask for a better situation for sure.
Dude, that's great. That's great. You had mentioned like once you and Jeff became 50-50 partners in the business, that was kind of the like, okay, like I'm
Hmm.
locked in. Like this is the opportunity. This is what I'm going to commit my life to, for lack of a
Hmm.
better term. Like what about that 50-50 really like gave you that eye-opening moment?
So it really became. Um, it was huge when I was having meetings with either potential clients or architects or designers or places that the work was going to come from. So Jeff
Mhm.
kind of gave me that ability, to do that. He was kind of, I think, comfortable and set, where he was, but I was kind of younger and ambitious, trying to like, hey, how can we drum up new business? How can we make new contacts? How can we get to another level, to the type of homes that we're going to build? And so I was doing a lot of work just meeting with people and trying to drum up business. And when the company was Jeff Rogers Custom Homes, and I was a either project manager, essentially was my title. It just was kind of hard. It didn't necessarily carry a lot of weight when I was in these meetings or trying to drum up business. And so I think once we changed the name to Fenn Rogers, and I could say, hey, yeah, I'm Brady Fenn. I'm the owner. I'm the partner in the company. Started to build a reputation kind of a little bit in the community with people that, hey, he's going to be the one to kind of take over the company. It just gave me a little bit more of a presence and a little bit more validity in those meetings, that allowed us to, allowed me to, yeah, try to land jobs and land business that I was trying to get.
Totally. It was just skin in the game. Really. I mean,
Yeah,
it sounds like
100%.
there was like a confidence lift, skin in the game.
Hmm.
Like there was I think that's probably valid for like a lot of people out here. It's like when you have these people like running the projects and doing these things, like when you throw someone who shows promise,
Yeah.
or you can see there's a win-win opportunity there. Jeff's trying to retire, like create a succession plan. Brady's trying to like get more involved with the side of the business. You can unlock a lot of opportunity.
Hmm. Yeah, it was good. It kind of, I mean, I feel like it's tough because part of it was a little like ego driven of like, hey, I want my name on the building, I want my name on the
Sure.
company, and so part of me is like, oh, does that really matter? Is that big of a deal? But yeah, it kind of does a little bit. I think it definitely has helped, again, when I'm trying to meet with people that are going to be sending me jobs or meet with clients. It instills confidence in them. But it's been really cool because I think with our company, having Jeff involved has been huge, because it's like, okay, he's experienced, he's seen everything, he's been around. I think for clients, they see, okay, you got Brady, who's a little bit more young and ambitious, but then you have Jeff, who's this good, experienced veteran, knows what he's doing. It instills confidence, instills trust, I believe, in our clients.
Beautiful. I love it. What would you say that you brought to the business that Jeff didn't have, and vice versa? Like, what gaps do you fill for each other?
Yeah, I think couple of things. Jeff had been doing. He started kind of on the real estate side of things in the early 2000s or 90s and 2000s, and then got into building spec homes, and then that turned into building custom homes. I think when he was kind of establishing himself as a builder, the working with interior designers was more of a pain than it was like helpful to the job. So he had a little bit of this negative attitude towards working with designers. It was kind of like, oh man, they're just going to make things more difficult, or they're going to slow up the process, or there's going to be changes. So I think that was something that I was able to bring in to the company, is trying to establish relationships with these people that were essentially going to give us better quality jobs, higher quality jobs. So I think establishing some of those relationships really has put us in another level of, the caliber of homes that we're building. And he has since, totally seen the light. I mean, it's been years where since that, since he had that mindset. So, it's very much, we love working with interior designers and the right architects, because that just means we're going to be working with the right clients.
Totally. Okay, so let me make sure. So Jeff was hesitant on working with these people because he was like, it would slow you down. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, it was kind of, and again, it's like an old school mentality a little bit. And I want to be
just
clear
like,
that he does not think this way anymore. So
sure.
But yeah, just very much of like, cause it was, technology was different back then, and just the organization, it was like these designers were more, at least the ones that he'd work with, they were just people who were going to come meet on site, make decisions, but then they were going to be making changes. They weren't going to have answers. That was kind of his experience. And so, yeah, he was pretty much, no, we don't need them. We can just point them to our vendors. They can go pick out stuff themselves, and we can just make the decisions, help them, and not involve somebody else.
For sure. And this, like, again, to just echo you being clear about this is not a knock on Jeff. I think it's good to talk about, and it's interesting to hear that. I mean, this was what, 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
Probably like 7 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
He like I said, he's totally on board the last probably, six or so years. I mean, these are our best jobs, come through these people. And so, yeah.
I think 100%. I think the point that I'm seeing here, and I think that we could dig into a little bit more, is just generally resistance to change.
Yeah.
And an overall openness that is missing in this sector, right? Just construction in general. And I don't think that construction would be what it is if you didn't have guys and gals that are running this stuff that are saying, we can do it. We can do it better. It's very much like a take it on ourselves to do it, and we can do it the right way, and we can grind ourselves into the freaking ground, and we can get this done, and we don't need all these other people. But I also I hear just time and time again the same story of whether it's the single owner or a partner or a business that's been really successful for 5, 10, 15 years, not being open to these types of concepts. And then all of a sudden they catch a sniff of success by doing something a little bit different. And they're just it changes the direction and trajectory of their business. It truly took someone who was a laborer, Brady Fenn, to come in and show promise, right? Manage projects, get the job done. And then all of a sudden you're like, dude, I think we can build some relationships with these people. And whether it was intentional in the sense of winning better work or not, it happened. And if it hadn't been for you, Rogers Construction or whatever it was before you came on board.
Jeff Rogers Custom Homes. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been a totally
Well,
different game.
it'd be a totally different game, but I mean, like you were saying, that doesn't necessarily mean that it would not be successful. It just would be a different. It's just different, you know.
Totally.
It's just a different level, a different type of home or product, you know, that was being presented. And but not necessarily, I wouldn't say it's inferior by any means, you know. So, but yeah, it's just and there were some growing pains that came along with that, you
Of
know, trying to
course.
figure out the transition between the difference. Okay, like yes, we got these higher caliber jobs, but we can't just keep doing things the same way we've been doing at a lower price point. It's just not gonna work, you know. So there are some
What
learning
were
experiences there for sure.
what were some of those things? Like generally, like what stands out to you?
So like a lot of it was on the financial side, which, you know, adaptive for sure, but making sure that our budgets were up to par with the design that was being presented. So like there were some projects early on where we got this interior design packets, you know, along with this project, and we kind of were like, okay, this is normally we budget this for trim carpentry, we budget this for paint, we budget this for cabinets, whatever. And then we get into the design and find out, oh man, these budgets are way off. You know, this
Hmm.
design is way more detailed and the client spent good money on this design and they're counting on us. Hey, you know, we gave you this design. You should have priced it per the design. So there was a few jobs where we kind of did it just, you know, how we always did and putting the budget together without really digging into the specifications that were presented to us, and it cost us. I mean, we were kind of in trouble. That made for, you know, lost money on our end, plus or hard conversations with the client saying, hey, we didn't budget enough for this, you know. And that was we've definitely had those. Me personally, I've had those hard conversations and they're not fun. So
Yeah, well, I can't imagine. I think like generally, what was the pivot? Because I mean, you guys were budgeting. You were budgeting. You just didn't take into consideration like the like the bigger scope or the
yeah.
quality and product or like how does
The
that? I don't.
quality of
How does that
product and
work?
just the amount, like, so like cabinetry, for example, like when you get interior design done, and they specify all the door styles, the stain, the hardware, the amount of cabinets, you know, so it could be completely different or just way more intense than what is on your architectural plans. You know, you can look at your architectural plans just from a 2D. Okay, yeah, there's base cabinets here, upper cabinets here. We kind of would look at it from a square footage and also like maybe we're using a semi-custom cabinet shop, or that's what we're used to, and then we get this design done that our semi-cabinet guy can't even do, you know, like he can't
Mhm.
do it. And so that then puts us to a different level of cabinet company that we need to use that's going to be more expensive because it's 100% custom cabinets. And so
Mhm.
that's like kind of an example. Or like, you know, trim carpentry is another thing. We actually self-perform trim carpentry, and so when we looked at that, it was, you know, on the plans, okay, yeah, this is the square footage. We'll budget this amount, you know, for it. But then you get into the interior design and there's specifications in every single room. You know, there's so many different things that were specified in the interior design that we just didn't account for. And so those are kind of a couple examples of things that were missed on our end when we were putting these budgets together.
Totally. Totally. No, I mean that's kind of how the story goes, right?
Yeah,
I have I
100%.
have so I have like two questions. The first being how did you choose to or like what was interesting enough for you guys to go, we'll call it upmarket or into these like
Yeah.
higher quality products. And then the second, which I think we could answer more immediately, is like how did you guys decide to bring um self-performed carpentry, finished carpentry in as an
So
offering?
the self-performing the trim carpentry was pre-existing even before my time, before with Jeff. So it was this crew
Okay.
of guys that he had. They're amazing. They do so much for us. I mean, honestly, we wouldn't be where we are without these guys. They just do so much for us. So Jeff had, I'm not sure exactly how he had first met them, but he was able to keep them busy through, you know, the recession, the crash, 08, 09, all of that by doing remodels. here and there, just kind of whatever he could to keep them busy. And then we've just always used them since. We have this crew of guys that they do all of our doors and trims. They build closets, any type of trim carpentry. But then on remodels that we do, they'll do some of the demo, some of the framing. They just do so much for us. So that's where that started. It's just kind of been a part of our business ever since I've been around.
Got it.
So they've just been so valuable for us.
Totally. I ask because like that's a topic that gets brought up on the podcast quite often is like the strategic advantage as a builder to bring in other revenue streams or offerings, right? Yeah. Some could call it like a vertical integration, right?
Yeah.
Like we bring in self-performing trim carpentry. We bring in like we'll buy our own equipment and then we'll lease it to ourselves to use, or we'll bring in a framing crew or whatever. And I didn't know if your guys' decision making was along that wavelength, or if it sounds like it was just more like happenstance.
No, yeah, more happenstance and more just like for better quality project from both management and just quality of work. So since we're cost plus, we actually don't. I mean, this is probably something we should look into. And, if you look into our finances, this is where it's like, if you were looking at it from a strictly financial point of view, we should be profiting more on them, but we just put their cost in as a line item. And then our percentage gets added to that because we're a cost plus on our contracts. So it's definitely not a financial gain for us. I mean, I guess it could be technically, but not really. That's not the reasoning behind it.
It's not like a bread and butter money maker. Like,
no.
What is the thinking behind that? Like, and it's more so like when you say like we probably could or should be doing that, but you decide to do it, bring it in basically at cost. Like, what's the business decision making around that?
I think it just kind of it allows us to be in the price point that we're at, maybe a little bit. It's not like it's a huge line item, in the overall cost of the project, but yeah, and it's just not something where I think it's maybe would lead to a hard conversation with clients if they see that and they're like, oh, well, you're charging me cost plus, but you're also making money on this line item. They might feel like they're being double billed a little bit.
Sure.
So just kind of, yeah, I think that's the nature of it. We don't necessarily want to get too greedy and feel like we have to collect every dollar on the project. But I mean, it really is just more of they do such good work. We feel like they're a representation of us and the work that we do. So that's more of the decision behind it.
Dude, value can be driven in a variety of ways, and it can be collected on in a variety of ways, right? Like, I don't necessarily know if I have a strong opinion one way or the other. I mean, I certainly talk to builders that are like, yeah, like you should be like standing up these different businesses and using them as the general contractor and making your markup margin on all of these people. But I think like also like to your point is like, maybe it could also just be viewed as more of like a competitive edge, right? Yeah. It's like, don't bite the hand that feeds you. In this situation, more of a like, these are reputable guys that we can rely on that are doing killer work regularly. Like, it's not like we're losing money on them. And this is a strategic angle that we can take to win these jobs and be competitive in the market.
So no, 100%. And I mean, and honestly, they aren't cheap. I mean, they're expensive what we pay them, but they're very qualified. And so if we were to add a markup on top of what they're already charging, it does get kind of pricey,
a little spicy.
So, yeah. So
cool. Yeah. Okay. So no, that makes a ton of sense. I think the other question was like, how did you decide to go into more, again, I'm going to call it upmarket, but we'll just call it like a more luxury product. And I will preface the reason I'm asking is because, I think like my world particularly is like, we work with like a lot of really high-end luxury home builders. almost so much in the sense that it's like it becomes like the normal, right? It's no
Mm-hmm.
different than
Yep.
like being on like social media, right? And you're in your own little echo chamber and you see the same shit over and over. It becomes normal, and like that's
Mm-hmm.
the expectation. But
Yep.
you kind of forget about the builder out there, and who, like, frankly, I appreciate the hell out of. We just released the episode. But it's with a builder down in Tupelo, Mississippi, and he's building a $250,000 to $400,000 price point home.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's like what the market can yield. Sure, there's probably bigger homes being built, but like he's very adamant about building that product for his reason. I'm curious what, and this is me assuming that like the Jeff Rogers custom home product was like significantly, you know, maybe not lesser in quality, but in like luxury than what you guys are doing now. How did you guys decide to step up into the market? What was the driver?
Yeah. So I'll answer that first, that last part. So it wasn't that Jeff wasn't doing luxury products, because he was, but it was more of like it'd be a one-off here or there, and then there'd be a lower market that was more of like the normal, I guess. And so definitely don't want to make it seem like he wasn't in this. I think even pre-recession, he was doing very high-end luxury spec homes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the market just changed, and I think that just shifted his mindset. So to answer the question, a couple of things. I think the market was going that way. You think back to 2014, 15, 16, like it was trending upwards. And then a big part of it for me was, it was at that time, 2014, I became good friends with Brad Levitt from AFT. So started seeing, he and I were just, playing basketball together, and I started seeing
Hey,
his,
who
and
won?
that's,
Who won? Who won?
oh,
Who
back
wins when you and
then,
Brad play ball?
oh man, you put me on the spot.
Yeah, let's do. Hey, dude,
It's
honesty is the best policy. Who's winning?
It's
Who's
pretty
winning, man?
even. Back then, I was in really good basketball shape, so I think I had the edge back then.
Yeah,
The
there we
crazy thing
go.
is,
Okay.
he's about 10 years older than me, and he's held it to where I feel like we're fairly even. Brad's a better shooter than I am. I'll give him that for sure. So,
I love it.
and unfortunately, Brad usually beats me on the golf course right now too. So, it's kind of got the edge a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but anyway, so I started seeing, that's really when he got into social media too,
Mm-hmm.
and posting just these really cool projects. And
Totally.
that's when, social media was starting to grow a little bit, and, you're seeing things, and I was wanting to do that. And I'm just like, man, some of these projects we're doing, I don't really want to post them. They're not very, there's nothing
Interesting.
that
Okay.
great.
Cool.
And then so it was talking with him a lot, and he's like, man, you gotta work with interior designers. Like, that's the difference. Like, that's who you gotta get in with, or you gotta get in with the right architects. Like, you can do, and that was kind of my thing too, is like, I felt like we had the right guys, or we had the right team in place to do the quality of projects that I wanted to. But we just weren't getting the clients. We just weren't getting the jobs that would allow us to do that. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's really what it was. It was kind of just social media, and just me personally wanting to do projects that I personally would like. And I
Mm-hmm.
definitely was leaning more that way, of these just higher quality luxury products. Definitely was not fitting for me. I grew up in a town of Southern Arizona with 5,000 people, and just not, it's not like I grew up around it by any means, but I don't know, just
Right.
kind of gravitated towards it, liked it. And then I think another part of it was too, like, higher budgets, higher quality projects allowed us to work with higher quality vendors and subcontractors too. So I just
Sure.
all around just wanted a better project, and not just so much grinding and doing it for as cheap as possible. Cause then those guys that you have to work with to do that, it's not enjoyable.
I mean, that makes all the sense in the world. I think like the self-awareness and that kind of like inflection point of creating a product that, just to be candid, you weren't super stoked to broadcast or like put your name on. Like, dude, I think that's a hell of a takeaway. Which again, like, I think even going back to this guy in Tupelo is like, you don't like all the pride doesn't have to be in the finishes or the
Hmm.
luxury, right? Like you listen to the episode with the builder and Tupelo, and you're like, damn, like this guy's just hyper passionate
Yeah.
about building an entry level home for individuals, first time home buyers, people that were in, like trailers, mobile homes, stuff like that, that never thought that they could get into a custom home or a new built home. Right. But I think that like inflection point for you is interesting, that it does like, you have to follow your truth, right? And like really be aware of who you are to say, am I going into this for the right reasons? And like, frankly, like what you guys are doing at Fenn Rogers, like, I don't know how you could put up a product like that and not be in it for the right reason, focusing on the vendor and subcontractor
Yeah.
relation, focusing on the client experience. And that's kind of my next question is like, it's pretty assumptive as to like the chuck in the truck, like guy with his name on the side of the truck, doing everything for as cheap as possible, working with those subs and vendors as a grind. What about it is a grind? Like, is it
Mm.
disorganization? Is it the quality of work? Is it having to
Yeah.
redo work? Is it like, what is it, all of the above?
Yeah.
What is it that really just like drives at that market?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's it. I think it's the maybe lack of organization, or, them, they may be a master at their trade that they're doing, but if they're trying to run the business too, they're just spread too thin. They're not able to do it. And so like the guys that we work with, we still do work with a lot of owner operator type subs, but they also have good guys in place that are able to do a good job. Kind of a good measure for us is like, do I feel comfortable with this person meeting with my client without me being there? Like, are they the type that I would feel comfortable where if they were to run into each other, if they were to have a meeting, I would feel confident, know that they would be, a good representation of me and my company and
Mhm.
would be able to hold their own. And so I honestly can say that about pretty much all of our subs and vendors that we work with. Like, and we do that a lot. We have a lot of trust in our guys, and um being able to do that and have meetings, have discussions. Now obviously we need to know all the information that's being discussed, but if a client were to just show up on a job site unannounced and they're talking to my cabinet guy or my painter or whoever, I'd feel good with them with that interaction, that it would instill confidence in the client. So, but yeah, I think
Totally.
just, organization, being able to hire, for these subcontractors, having enough, of a fee or a budget for what they do to be able to hire good quality people to work with.
Mhm.
And then the materials too, just working with higher quality materials is another, another part of it for sure.
Totally. Totally. When it comes to, and you talked a little bit about like the progression of, and again, it sounds like Jeff was like running like a very like high quality business before, but for the builders that are
Mm-hmm.
out there that are like probably in that position to where they're a remodeler trying to get into new construction, or they're in new construction but they're trying to get into more of the luxury space. You're talking about budget, you're talking about getting involved with interior designers, architects, you're talking about all that stuff. Is there anything from a business standpoint that you would urge them to consider before stepping up into landing a client with more budget that allows you to get involved with better subs and better material?
Ooh, yeah, I think just having your process as dialed in as best you can. I talked about kind of our pains that we went through. That was more on the front end, the budgeting and the estimating side. So really like digging into all the specifics and details of plans and everything like that. So I think on the front end, as much as you can be better prepared that way. But then, I mean, after that, it kind of is just going to take a little bit of trial and error, like jumping into it. Ideally, if the perfect situation is if you could do a spec home where
Mm-hmm.
you don't have a client, you're able to, whether you partner with an investor or however it's going to work, but get into that and build the level that you want, um, to be your bread and butter, build to that level that you want, you're wanting to get to on a custom home side. I mean, that would be ideal, but that's hard. I mean, it's risky. You got to find the right deal, and you got to be a little bold and try to take that chance. So that's a little bit of what we've done, what we did. But we also did some small remodels that we wouldn't normally do, but
Mhm.
there's been a handful of jobs that we've done where it's like, hey, this is just a little kitchen remodel, or it's a bathroom remodel, and they want to paint their house, but they're spending, $750,000 on furniture with the designer. And so the designer like really wants to get the job, but they want to have the right contractor to do this little bit of work for them. We've done that. And that's established a relationship with designers that they're like, hey, thank you for doing that. It allows us to get our foot in the door to do a project with them. And then so when they get a new build or a bigger project that comes their way, we already have a little bit of a relationship there.
Totally. No, and I think that's like, I think you talk about speccing a house, right? And that for sure is risk. And there's so much that goes into it. I'm going to sneeze.
Bless you.
Damn, did I blow your ears out on that one? Or did I miss the mic? You're good?
You missed it. Yeah, you're good.
All right, cool. We all gotta sneeze sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes you just gotta sneeze, No, I think, but in terms of like taking that risk on a spec house, taking that smaller job with the interior designer, it all like, again, it goes back into relationships. It goes back into building a reputation. Like, I get it. One thread that I want to go into, which again, like my background, like when I was at Builder Trend, like ran their on-site consulting service. One of our customer success managers over here, Daniel Martinez, he was doing the consulting. I mean, that was like truly a standard operating procedure based business. Like, you pay Builder Trend, they go out, they learn their business, they establish processes and procedures. Did you do one of those, by the way? Is that how we met? Or did we meet through Adaptive? I can't remember.
We met through Adaptive, yeah.
Because are you a Builder Trend guy? Or are you not a Builder Trend guy? Or kind of? Maybe your wrong question.
We are on the fence. Builder Trend is amazing. I definitely don't want to say anything bad about Builder Trend. We just have not ever really fully like committed to it for it to be valuable for us. So
okay,
and it just kind of goes with the way we run our business, basically. So
yeah, understood. And that wasn't the point here. The point here, and I apologize, I opened that door.
Not trying to take a shot at Builder Trend. All right.
Yeah, no. I'm going to close that door real quick here. So when it comes to standard operating procedures, processes, that's what you had mentioned is like, have your processes dialed. Like you talked about estimating and budgeting. I talked to a lot of builders about process. Why is it so hard? Like, why is it such a point of conversation? And why is it's so simple, but it's like, what is the challenge of it?
Because we're building custom homes, and you're building something for the first time. And so as soon as you set a schedule or a process, it's going to change. You're just like, there's such an imperfect nature to what we're doing. If you were manufacturing a car, or, I have that conversation with clients all the time, like, hey, this isn't the same as buying a new car off the lot. That's all, machines and processes. It goes through so many checks and balances and everything. This is the first time this house has ever been built. This is the first time. And first, you're going to live in it, and there's going to be things that you're going to discover from living there that we just, we can't completely test it out before we hand it over to you. So I think that's just part of it. I mean, part of it is just stubbornness too, like kind of, you got some old dogs in the construction industry that it's hard to teach new tricks to. Sure. And also, but yeah, I think it's just chaos, and we kind of just get used to like figuring it out as you go. It's like, well, what's the point of putting a schedule together? Because the second we finish the schedule, it's going to get changed. Everything's going to get pushed back. And it's just like frustrating. You feel like you're failing because you're not sticking to the schedule, where really it's like, well, maybe that just is the way it is. So now, that being said, I'm definitely not saying not to do schedules and have systems and everything. It's kind of, you have to find that balance between trying to create those things, but not beating yourself up when you're not sticking to them.
Okay, so it's more so, well, and that's kind of like, we're after hearing that and just like generally having an idea of how this stuff works.
Yeah,
is like, it's probably, don't get hung up on I'm not gonna say the detail. How do you phrase this? Point being is like, it's not that the schedule is moving. It's like, what is the process that is in place? to keep the big stuff updated? Or like what's
Yeah.
the big underlying concept that we're trying to systematize? Is that fair? Am I articulating that? What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's like, I think for I mean, maybe a simpler way to look at it is like progress is kind of the main thing that you're wanting to be your process, if that makes sense. Like
Okay.
if so, like for example, like if we have guys working every day on a job, there's multiple guys there, they are working every day, but they're a week behind a so-called schedule that we have put together. Like, how can you get upset with that? Like, is that a failure? Are you behind schedule? Or is that just how long it takes? You know, like,
Sure.
so I think that for us, like, and especially in the luxury, like the quality luxury custom home, it's not about sticking to a schedule or like building as fast as you can. I mean, yes, you do want to do that without sacrificing quality because that's how you can be most profitable. But it's more so just about making sure there's progress. It's moving along. It's not stagnant. There's not nobody at, no one's working. That's what's frustrating is if, you're not organized well enough to where you didn't plan ahead and then you have a couple of weeks where nothing is happening at the job. I mean, that's not good for sure,
That's the
obviously, but
problem.
that's the problem. So,
Dude, I think that's a pretty solid takeaway. Is like build the process around progress and know that, like, to your point, like just to the custom nature for the builders out there that are building, again, never building the same floor plan twice. Everything's
mhm,
custom. Like, it's probably more so important that you are building the process around progressing through the build as best as you
mhm,
know. But then, like, how reasonable is it to say that if we scheduled in X number of weeks or days for tile or whatever on this type of project, are you to go back and be like, we have a process in place to run a postmortem on all of our projects and understand the slippage on our schedules and know that if we have projects like this, we document it here, we reflect back in our pre-con and develop from there. Is that ridiculous?
um, it is to me. So, but I
Okay,
know
let's hear
that
it.
there's other people, there's other builders, and I look up to people that are more wired that way. I
Mm-hmm.
am just not wired that way. Like that is just not my. And honestly, I wish I was. I am envious of people who think that way. They're able to analyze data and then take that and then use it and be like, okay, this project was this many square feet and it took the tile guys X number of days to do it. So then if we were to take that and put it into calculate it into this house, like it's just not I just do not think that way. That is just not me. So I've accepted that. So
Yeah, yeah,
um so no, it's not crazy to think. And I do think there's people, I mean, you see it a lot in sports. There's a lot of analytics are a huge thing in
totally.
all the different sports. And there's people who get fixated on it, stuck on it. And then there's other people who just go off more off of feel and just, hey, this should be, so I think the biggest thing for me, though, with the way that we're wired, is maybe we make up for lack of like scheduling or analytics or data, that side of things, by communication with our
Sure.
clients and
Yeah,
setting correct expectations. So
sure.
communicating and doing business in a way to where they trust us and they just aren't second guessing or aren't questioning, hey, is this how it should be done? They feel that if they feel that they trust us, I'm setting the right expectation. Hey, we think the house is going to take 15 to 18 months to build, and we're staying on track within that, then everything is okay. It's all just about that expectation. That's been a big thing I've been thinking of probably the last year or two, is just any headaches or frustrations or any negativity with clients is all because the right expectation was not set. Like expectations are not being met. And so if we can do a better job at setting that, meeting that expectation, keeping them in the loop, having hard conversations as soon as possible, not letting them linger,
Hmm.
then that just allows for that much better of a project. And for
Totally.
us, it allows us to not be as dialed in on some of the schedules and systems and stuff like that.
I think that's fair. Dude, if business in general was like, this is the right way to do it, the perfect businesses in the world would exist, and that's just not a thing.
Yeah,
So
100%. Yeah,
I think there's room for people to get. I think, and that was kind of a part of like your commentary was like, give yourself some grace, basically, right?
100%.
Like
Oh,
if we're
100%.
like,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I just was agreeing with you. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, give yourself some grace. Understand it's a fluid motion. Like you're building. Another one of our guests from Austin made the comment about like, for God's sakes, like you show up to a job site and you look at the people that are building your house. That's one thing, but then you remember that you're building it outside in the elements.
Yes.
Like truthfully, anything can go wrong. It's like, dude, you gotta like chill
100%.
out a little bit and
Yeah.
like just control the things that you can control and focus on like
Well, and I
building the
think
process and
that's
stuff that matter.
just, I mean, it all goes into your very first meeting with your clients and like setting them up to like honestly tell, hey, this is going to suck for the next couple of years. Like, you're going to hate this. I always tell clients too, like, the funny thing is like, you finish building a house, you go through the whole process, the architecture, the interior design, you spend millions of dollars, you get there, and then you finish, and then you look back and you know everything that you would do differently the next time,
Mm-hmm.
but you'll never do it again because it was such a painful process. So it just is the conundrum of it, like, and then granted, there we've had repeat clients, and there's people who enjoy it and go through it multiple times, but it's just funny, you have that conversation all the time. So it's our job to try to educate them as best we can because we've done it before. But I think it's just all about setting that right expectation.
Totally. Dude, I thought this was great. I always enjoy it when I get some of your time. I think what you guys are doing down in Phoenix is awesome. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you coming on the show, dude. Thanks for
Yeah,
joining
thank
your
you.
wealth of knowledge.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Reese.
Of course. We'll see you, dude.
See you.